Welcome back everyone, it's Vaz again with another video from World of Warships Legends. And today we have another versus for you. In versus we compare two similar and readily available ships to determine if one is better than the other. We'll tally the points up as we go along, and at the end we hope to determine a winner. We'll also throw in a little bit of information on the ships, as well as tips on builds and playstyles. First up, we'll start with a little bit of background on the ships. Both ships are part of the Bismarck class of battleships, with the Bismarck itself being commissioned in 1940 and the Tirpitz being commissioned a few months later in 1941. Considering these are sister ships, or brother ships if you're German, we'll be expecting to see a lot of similarities here. There are a few differences however. After the Bismarck was sunk in 1941, at the end of the year the Tirpitz went in for a refit before being deployed again. She received additional anti-aircraft guns and 4 torpedo tubes on either side of the ship. The biggest difference in game is that the Tirpitz is a premium ship, so it also comes with a permanent camo and an increased credit earning potential, although a recent update has reduced the service cost for Tier 7 tech tree ships, making the Bismarck cheaper to play. And when it comes to obtaining these ships, the Bismarck will set you back 18 million credits, and is unlocked by grinding your way up the German battleship tech tree. And you can unlock the Tirpitz for the low price of 250,000 global XP. See ya in 3 months. For this versus, we're going to try and switch up the order of things a little bit here, and go through the playstyle and build recommendations before doing any scoring to try and make the summary a little more climactic. As for the playstyle of these ships, they're both well armored and have a solid secondary armament, and that favors a brawling playstyle. The other reason why you'll want to play a little closer up, preferably mid-range, is because although there isn't any statistical data to measure it, the accuracy of these ships is well known to be not the greatest. Hence the countless buffs the Bismarck has received since the game was introduced. Therefore, the standard commander I recommend is Celiax. For the first skill choice, I picked a good day's work, because I feel like the 10% reduction in range that Brawler gives you is too much of a detriment. And then I've chosen Porcupine, although Crisscross is viable, and then of course Firefighter, and then Master Mechanic. For the legendary skill, I've chosen Will to Rebuild, since you'll be throwing your HP around a lot. That way you can gain back more and keep on battling. Stacking Master Mechanic with Will to Rebuild will really frustrate your enemies. You'll have them yelling, "Why won't he just die?" As for inspirations, I've chosen Cunningham to improve the accuracy, and Von Hipper for improved secondaries. Certainly someone like De Revel or Madden would be good choices as well, to improve the main battery reload times even further to help with close quarter situations. Moving on to upgrades, both ships come with 4 starting upgrade slots, while the Bismarck has an additional 3 unlockable upgrade slots. Starting with slot 1, your choices are Aiming Systems Mod 1, Secondary Battery Mod 2, or Main Battery Mod 2. For both ships, I've chosen Aiming Systems to help with that German dispersion everyone talks about. Although the Bismarck has seen enough buffs in the time that I've been playing that I don't think anyone's going to be saying much longer. If you did want to do a full secondary build though, you might want to take a look at that secondary mod. In slot 2, your options are Steering Gears Mod 2, Propulsion Mod 2, or Damage Control System Mod 2. On most of my ships I choose the Propulsion mod to help the stop and go gameplay that I like. But on the Tirpitz, I've taken steering gears to take advantage of the torpedoes while I'm in close quarters combat situations. We'll skip over slot 3 to save time because it's the same for all high tier ships. Which brings us to slot 4. The choices are Secondary Battery Mod 3 or Main Battery Mod 3, and in the case of the Tirpitz you also have the option of Torpedo Launchers Mod 3. And in the case of that Torp mod, I find that it causes them to be knocked out more often, and you won't really be using torps enough to need the decrease in reload time anyways. I also didn't like the increased turret traverse speed of the main battery mod due to wanting to get up close and personal in the Tirpitz, so for that ship I chose a secondary battery simply because it doesn't come with any trade-offs. But I feel like you could choose any 3 of these mods for the Tirpitz, just comes down to your personal preference. For the Bismarck, either choice is fine, but I went with the main battery mod since you'll be playing the ship mid-range, so the hit to the turret traverse will be a little bit less impactful. Now the difference in mod choices here will change the stats of the ships, but when we get to the stats screen, have no fear, we'll account for those. Moving on to the loadout screen, I've removed all boosters and camo and put a commander on each ship that won't affect any of the stats shown. Both ships have nearly the exact same consumables, but there are 2 differences. The first is the repair party. The Tirpitz can heal back just over 2,000 more hit points with each repair party. Multiply that over the course of the 3 base repair parties and that equates to over 6,000 more hit points the Tirpitz can heal back in a match. And that nets at the first point of this matchup. The second consumable difference is that the Bismarck has a sonar consumable while the Tirpitz doesn't. And this advantage ties up the matchup at 1 apiece. Now onto the stat screen. When comparing survivability, both ships are nearly identical. The Tirpitz does actually have 100 more hit points, but that's barely noticeable. And we'll save the armor for the armor viewer. Finally, both ships have the same 22% reduction torp belt. Next we have artillery. Both ships have the exact same 15-inch guns, but the Tirpitz has a tiny 100-meter range advantage, which again isn't enough to be a difference maker. Now due to my mod choices, the reload and turret traverse for the Bismarck have been altered on this screen. Its actual reload and turret traverse times are 26 and 36 seconds respectively, which puts it on par with the Tirpitz. Now although the Tirpitz has a 1 second reload time advantage, again it's too small to warrant a point. It equates to just an extra 1.4 shots over the course of a full 15-minute match. I really wanted to give out a point here, but it's just not a big enough difference to call it a real advantage. Well then let's see if that extra second will alter the damage per minute numbers. Since they both have the exact same guns, the shell damage and fire starting chances are the same. But now let's factor in the Bismarck's extra second reload time. The high explosive damage per minute for the Tirpitz is now over 400 higher per minute. Not really enough to be a difference maker, especially when these ships won't be using that shell type very much. The fire setting chance per minute is also just 3% higher on the Tirpitz, again not enough to make a difference throughout a match. Now finally, the AP shell damage per minute is 1071 higher than the Bismarck. Now we're talking. That's more than 16,000 in potential damage output over the course of a match, and that's worth a point. When it comes to the secondaries, if you take off the secondary reload mod that I've equipped to the Tirpitz, the reload times and the DPM for the secondaries on both ships are exactly the same. And they do have the exact same armament. There is one big difference though, the range. The Bismarck enjoys a 2 km secondary range advantage, which means it gets a point here to tie the match up again at 2. And what do we have here? The Tirpitz has torps while the Bismarck doesn't. That's a point for the Tirpitz, nothing more can be said there. Maneuvering on over to maneuverability. Take my rudder mod off the Tirpitz and everything on this screen is exactly the same, with the exception that the Busy is a half knot faster. I guess Wargaming is accounting for those torps the Tirpitz is lugging around. At any rate, it's hardly an advantage, so we're going to be moving on to concealment. And guess what? Thank you Wargaming, you've actually made things exactly the same. That makes it easy for us. And so we'll move right on to armor. During the Tirpitz's refit, it did not receive an armor upgrade, therefore the armor of these ships is identical. For whatever reason, Wargaming has put 5mm of extra armor in 2 spots on the Bismarck, but that's 5 frickin' millimeters. I mean, come on, what's the point of doing that? And for the sake of detail and wrapping everything up, their citadels are identical as well. So in summary, the advantages that the Bismarck has is that it comes with the sonar consumable and has increased secondary range. It also has a reduced service cost, but that doesn't affect gameplay, so we're just going to put an asterisk beside that. While the Tirpitz enjoys a better repair party, better armor piercing DPM, and has the advantage of having torpedoes. And because it's a premium ship, it also has increased credit earning potential. But again, that doesn't affect gameplay, so that gets an asterisk as well. So there you have it. In the battle of the Tier 7 German battleships, the Tirpitz just barely squeaks out the win. But of course, that's not to say the Bismarck is a worse ship, it's just that if you had to choose one over the other, you might find that you'll be playing the Tirpitz a little more often. So which ship do you guys prefer? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you have any suggestions for future Versus videos, please throw them at me. Well, thank you for watching. If you did like that video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. If you want to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button. And as always, stay healthy and do what makes you happy.